Hi, welcome again to the Beer Temple. I am Chris Quinn, and with me is...
Margaret Quinn, his lovely wife.
His lovely wife, my lovely wife. And we've definitely got one of those story beers that I like so much today. So, as I've said in the past, I really love stories, or beers that have a story behind them. I also love stories that have a beer behind them, but that's for a different podcast. This is, man, if there ever was a beer with a story behind it, this is it, I think.
But before we get into the story.
Comment of the episode, comment of the day, whatever you want to call it. From Johnny again. You weren't on the last episode. Last episode, Johnny had the comment, and the first repeat winner of the comment of the episode. I want to stay thin. I do want to stay thin. So I will drink only IPAs from now on. IPA apostrophe S. So IPA is what? I don't know, but something of an IPA.
Johnny will be drinking to stay thin.
Yeah, I do want to stay thin, so I will only drink IPAs from now on! Exclamation point. And he wrote that the email was r@b.com. I went to b.com. Great site. You guys check it out. Not as good as a.com,
right,
but next best.
So Johnny had some great feedback to our IPA show. Thank you, Johnny. Hope you are staying thin on that IPA diet of yours.
There you are.
Now
moving on. Yeah, so this is, I don't think we've had Hitachino on before, but they are a Japanese brewery. They make really great craft beers. I particularly like their Hitachino. You particularly like their Hitachino White.
Yes.
I think it's one of the better wit beers on the market.
That beer for me was one of my aha type beers where you know I really loved it, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you know, kind of had a new respect for wit beers after that.
And it's really, if we ever do a breakfast beers, that's like the quintessential brunch beer, Hitachino White. But anyway, Hitachino is made by Kiuchi, I believe it is, Brewing.
Brewery?
Yeah, it's actually a sake brewery in Japan, and they started brewing beer in the mid-90s, really about the same time where a lot of the big craft breweries in America started going, you know, the Dogfish Victories, you know.
1996?
Something around that, yeah.
I just know that.
Yeah, You know that because I wonder why. Anyway, and they've just gotten into now winemaking as well.
Right.
But it seems like primarily a sake brewery.
Right. And you know, one thing I found really interesting about Kiuchi, I think is the way you say it. They started in 1823 as a sake brewery, and it was started by this guy who was like the leader of a village, and he was collecting rice as payment for taxes from the people in the village. And he realized he had all this rice kind of stored up in a warehouse, and he needed a way to repurpose that rice. So that's why he started that sake brewery.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so you know, sort of an interesting story, and it was passed down.
Just want to make sure the mic is on. Okay. Sorry.
Passed down, you know, through the families, and then yeah, like you said, started brewing beer in the mid-90s, and even doing some distilling and some winemaking now. Yeah,
so very cool. They do have certain beers that they use rice in. They have a red rice ale, and yeah, so it's really cool. They also are one of the front runners for coolest cap design. I've given that in the past to Bell's Hop Slam, but they've got a really cool little owl guy on their cap, which is really fun.
Yeah.
But let's talk specifically about this beer. This, so almost exactly a year ago, the huge earthquake hit Japan, and it affected the brewery. At the time, they were brewing Hitachino White, actually, and it damaged the brewery. It, I think, broke a lot. It messed them up pretty bad.
Yeah.
And
on their website, they do have some photos. If you have the time and inclination, check it out. They do have photos of the earthquake damage around the brewery, and they have some interesting reports about radiation testing that they were going through and things like that during
sure, if
during
it's
the
food,
time.
a food product, yeah.
So you get a real good feel for the impact that event had on the brewery just by looking at their website and some of this history from where they were last year.
So, at the time of the earthquake, they were, like I said, brewing Hitachino White. The power got knocked out. The mash tun was like knocked onto its side, or not its side, but kind of like knocked over a little bit. And by the time they got back to the place, got the power back up, it had been 3 days. So the beer had just been kind of sitting there in the mash tun for 3 days. And spontaneous fermentation had started to take place. I mean, there is yeast everywhere. There's yeast floating around in the environment, and there's also bacteria as well. Especially in a brewery, there's a ton of lactobacillus, which is the bacteria associated with a lot of the sour beers, particularly Berliner Weiss. So that nice tartness, almost like lemony tartness that you get from a Berliner Weiss, that's from the lactobacillus. It's just kind of covered. A malt is covered in it naturally, but you boil it and you get rid of it, in normal brewing process. So spontaneous fermentation happened. They, gathered it. I guess they sparged it and then brewed it and made this kind of one-off beer. I think they made 8,000 bottles or something, 3,000 of which made it to the States, I saw.
Oh, wow.
You might still be able to get some.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the date, the brewed on date was, a year ago. It just started showing up in the States recently.
Yeah.
And cost, I don't remember the cost either. To me, it's kind of irrelevant. It's the normal bomber price of a beer. I think it's $10 or less, something like that. It's called 3 days, so I'm really interested to try this beer.
Yeah,
it's a one-time beer, and it's never going to be made again.
Right.
And it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
What if it just shattered the bottle and it all just went everywhere then and we didn't get any?
That would be good.
Got our little owl cap.
I do like the owl cap. That's probably my favorite beer logo. Thank you.
All right, so right away, you can see a difference in the color.
Sure, based off the Hitachino Nest or the white ale is what you're talking about.
Yeah, the whip beer is much lighter. This is more of a kind of like almost like a murky reddish brown color to it.
There's a word for that. It's called orange, and I forget who the name of the person who's making fun of the way we say orange. It's orange. Let's just face it. We say it correctly. You're probably wrong. But yeah.
I think you're probably wrong saying that's orange, but orange, whatever.
Whatever. So yeah, it's definitely a cloudy beer. Orange colored, whatever you want to call it. But it looks pretty good.
It doesn't smell anything like Hitachino White.
Not at all.
I don't know if they add. I mean, wit beers are typically spiced with coriander and curacao orange peel. I don't know if they did that. It doesn't really say anything, but what you are getting.
I do get. I mean, I feel like I get some spice out of that.
Maybe some orange actually.
And I was gonna say, I definitely do get some citrus, some sweet orange in there.
But there's almost like, what are like Slim Jims or whatever spiced with? I mean, I'm getting
Slim Jims.
But you know what I'm talking about, like sausages, like dried sausages.
Fennel.
Maybe there's some like fennel in there as well.
Yeah,
it's got like a weird, like kind of dried sausagey smell to it.
I'll prefer to think about that as fennel.
Dried sausagey.
I was gonna say cedar or eucalyptus. Definitely something with like a minty quality.
Yeah, a little eucalyptus.
Makes sense if you're thinking fennel. That might be a possibility.
So like take some eucalyptus, steal it from a koala. Take a Slim Jim, steal it from Randy Macho Man's cold dead hands, and bite them together, and
that's
you're tasting the aromatics of this beer. But what else? It's getting malt. You're not getting any really hop
No.
aromatics too. I'm not getting a ton of coriander, although it very well might be there as well. I don't know if they treated this beer the same as they would the normal Hitachino White.
I do get a tad funk in this, you know, like
a little bit of like a tartness, but it smells pretty much like an English ale to me, really. You know, you get some fruity esters in there.
Yeah, definitely. Let's give it a taste.
Weird beer.
Yeah, let's pick it up off of fruity esters because it does taste quite fruity to me, this beer.
Quite fruity, and you are getting like fennel or anise or something in there as well, almost like kind of like a black licorice flavor to it, underlying the fruity esters. It's not the most vibrant beer. It's a little bit muddled as well.
But and to me, it does taste. I get alcohol in this too, especially on the back end. Are you getting? I mean, it's an 8%, I think, ABV, so it's not a high alcohol beer.
It's pretty high.
Well, it's certainly bigger than the white ale. But
8%, yeah.
Yeah, so you know, it's not overpowering. It's something I'm getting on the back end, but I feel like I do get a little bit of heat off this beer.
Yeah, to me, it's really that weird kind of lingering licorice-y flavor to it, and I mean it with the flavors of licorice, but also kind of how a good black licorice has almost like that earthy, rooty flavor to it as well. I'm definitely getting that as well. It's a fine beer. I don't know how fresh it tastes to me either. It doesn't taste oxidized or anything like that, but a little bit muddy. It's not really popping in any one direction.
But I actually think this is a fairly solid beer. I think it's drinkable. I think it could really go nicely with food as well.
I think this beer...
You all right? You gonna make it?
I kill myself.
I have insurance, so we're covered.
Thanks. I think that this beer might really do well to have some food with it.
Yeah.
I think some good pub food would probably be what I would want to eat this with.
I was gonna say, the first thing that came to my head was curry fries, something with maybe like a spicy sweet sauce.
Yeah.
I think could go really nicely with this beer.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go 87 for the beer. It's fine. It's not blowing me away. I think really the reason to drink it is the story behind it, and also the fact that they made it and that they were there, and I just think it's really cool kind of to like stand by this brewery. And now given an 87, I would say go buy this beer. I mean, it's a beer that's never going to be made again. And it's got such a cool story to it.
Just an incredible story, really.
Yeah, and I do think this is a beer that will move slow enough because people aren't really going to notice it, that you still may be able to find it on shelves. So ask about it, maybe pick it up in your area. They do a very good distribution throughout the states as well.
And I'll go 89. I actually, like I said, I think this is a very solid beer. I think I probably like it maybe a little bit more than you do.
2 points more.
Two points more, to be exact.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy this.
There you have it, the 3 days from Hitachino Nest Beer. Pretty awesome little beer. They've also got the little Richter scale thing going there. And
you know, just sort of one last thought. I just love how they turn that you know, really tragic event into something. You know, they sort of made a positive impact.
They made lemonade out of lemons.
Right.
Life gave them a lemon, and they made lemonade.
Well, which
is putting it, kind of making light of a huge tragedy.
I feel as though you're an asshole right now. So I'm gonna say I just like the way that they turn that event into something positive. You know, something that could call attention to the. I guess, absolutely.
Situation. I mean, I think it was obviously a huge tragedy. I don't know anything if they're doing anything with the proceeds, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool that the beer was made. I think there's a really interesting story behind it, and I guess I'm an asshole for wanting to stand in solidarity with them. I think I just said. There you go. There you have it. Margaret won't be on the show anymore, but I will be, and you can check me out on Facebook, Twitter, on my site, craftbeertemple.com, and that's about it. But until then, I've got some good beer to drink.
And hopefully you do too.